As someone who's been charged by the Securities and Exchange Commission, I'm a marketer. Someone who's been charged by the Department of Justice and actually went to prison. I'm I'd like to provide some perspective on the massive Tai Lopez charge by the Securities and Exchange Commission of $112 million. Before I do, welcome to the White Collar Advice channel. I hope you find value in this live video on Tai Lopez. I thought I'm going to film a video and edit it. It's like, why? I have the content. This is my career in life. Let's do it. I wrote a blog earlier today on this charge. I'm going to go through some portions of it. Over the weekend, I put up the preface to a new book I've written called After the Fall. The book will be free and we'll give it away like we do everything. The preface is on the White Collar Advice site. And in that preface, I mentioned that the hardest part of a civil or criminal investigation is the waiting and the wondering. Indeed, what Tai Lopez is enduring right now with civil regulators launching this massive investigation, these charges, which very well could lead to criminal charges, is incredibly difficult. Let's not forget Elizabeth Holmes and Jordan Belfort, I believe, started off as Securities and Exchange Commission investigations. The SEC then referred it to the Department of Justice. That's exactly what happened in my case with Cindy Nixon and Bob Tessero at the SEC, frankly, who I found to be very kind and honest. They made a recommendation to the Department of Justice. That's a wrap. Yours truly eventually went to prison for 18 months. So this is going to be an opportunity for Tai Lopez, before I get more into the specific charges, to try to follow the advice he has given to so many people for so long about what it is to overcome and to build and to be honest, to be an entrepreneur, to create, to provide value. It's easier said than done, I know from experience, because he is in this very difficult position of what happens next. Will it become criminal? Is the DOJ going to pick it up? And he also has co-defendants or partners who I can assure you are lawyering up as he has, and they're all determining what do we do next. Because I presume the highest value for Tai Lopez or anyone charged with a civil, anyone, is trying to engineer the best possible outcome. The best outcome for him would be not having this go to the DOJ. Right? He shouldn't be focused on the civil sanctions, the forfeiture and fines, and all of that stuff that I'll cover. The goal is to avoid this becoming criminal. The problem is the loss amount is absolutely, it's massive. It's $112 million, which put the sentencing guidelines through the roof. Now, before I get into this blog, I want to address the unfortunate reality of the world that we live in. A simple Google search of Tai Lopez on LinkedIn, Facebook, and others. Instagram, if you see the comments, it is people taking pleasure in his pain, the misery they want to continue to come to him. The comments that people leave about hoping if he goes to prison that something terrible happens to him tells you we live in a current society where people do take pleasure in the pain of other people. It is the consequence of putting your life online for others to review and digest. And of course, when you're filming viral videos in a garage next to a Lamborghini, saying the Lamborghini isn't what's important, it's these hundreds of books behind me what's important, which is what Tai Lopez said. That's going to lead to people hating and seeking pain, death, terrible things for you. It's the consequence of living online and showing off the mansions, the women, the jets, the money, the cars. It's a consequence of that life. And of course, there are so many people taking pleasure in it. I will remind you, it's simply an accusation. Who knows what will come from this? But I don't think there's any upside in taking pleasure in the pain of other people. I'm hopeful that Tai Lopez and his co-defendants make good decisions, meaning they act with a potential victim in mind, which is the only thing the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Department of Justice cares about. The problem is so many defendants at this stage, they tend to go into cover-up mode, deny, excuse, blame. I presume he'll begin to do some videos talking about this directly or indirectly. The government would love for him to do that because it's just more evidence they'll have against him. But too many defendants do not approach it from the right perspective. What do victims know? What have they said? And what have I done, if anything, to counter that narrative? So let's quickly go through the charges. According to the SEC, Lopez, Alex Mayer, and Maya Birkenroad raised more than $100 million through retail e-commerce ventures. Rev. The pitch was simple. Buy nostalgic but failing retail brands like Radio Shack and Pier 1 Imports. I've shopped at both. Move them online and make them profitable. That's the story. The SEC, however, has a different version of events, a different story. And here's that story. The businesses were not profitable. Investor money was misused. New money paid off earlier investors. There, my friends, therein lies the big problem. A Ponzi structure, a Ponzi scheme is what they were alleging, of $112 million. Millions were allegedly diverted for personal use. This is probably the most important part of the charge. Besides the alleged fraud and misrepresentations in bringing in money, it's what did they do with the money? So being in this space 16 years and working with so many people through our white collar advice community, please like and subscribe if I haven't said that already. The government is very interested in what happens with the money. So if he's filming videos with Lamborghinis and jets, and it's money that has been purloined or stolen from somebody else, that is a problem. I shared recently, there was someone in our community, it was a $160 million restitution. Though the sentence was just a couple of years, the guidelines would be like, we got to bury this guy under the prison. Why would he get 2 years? It's what he did with the money. In that instance, he had a hedge fund. People wanted their money back by way of redemptions, and he prioritized properly giving money back to his investors. He gave it back to somebody else when it was somebody else's turn. And by the time he got to the person who wanted it first, the market had dropped. There was a gap or loss of 160 million, but not $1 of that feeded his jet, which he had, his mansion, which he had, his country clubs, which he had. None of it fed that lifestyle. It was bad decision making. He went to prison, but with that 160 million, had he used it to fund that lifestyle, he'd have gotten 50, 20, 30 years in prison. Look at someone like Scott Tucker. So if they deduce that this 112 fed this lifestyle, that is how you get sentencing guidelines that are 10 or 20 years in prison, which kind of leads to he has to assess what he wants to do next, what any defendant strives or wants to do next, right? So I can tell you from experience, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the first thing they do is they want the money. So if this is civil, and it's kind of toothless, some would argue, because they can't charge you, though of course they can refer to the DOJ, and I suspect they will. The first thing that they're going to do is try to get some asset freezes and injunctions. And I presume they've already frozen accounts. Though I presume, because I heard Tai Lopez say many, many years ago, I could be wrong, if you're in crypto and things like that, there's ways to get off the grid. Who knows? But the first thing the Department of Justice is going to do is try to get they're going to try to freeze as much as they can. And then they're going to go for disgorgement and restitution. I know that well. I had disgorgement of $335,000 and I paid it all. Everything has been paid back, thankfully, though it doesn't mean that it's hard. And what happens is when your assets are frozen, you have this immediate shift. You get debanked from everyone. And then someone like Tai Lopez, based on the mansion in Beverly Hills and the Lamborghinis and the jets, has a really massive and high lifestyle. And I presume it takes 6 figures a month to feed, to live. So when you don't have the income coming in anymore, because this could preclude people from buying his programs like 67 Steps or going to his mansion in Beverly Hills for the private event, when you don't have as much income coming in, then the government freezes your money. You get really in free fall mode. Like your life really begins to get shook. And of course, that's going to be of value or happiness to the potential victims, happy to people online, but it could compel him to make some immediate and differing decisions. If not, the government can just sort of bleed you dry. You run out of money. And of course, the lawyers are very expensive as well. So I presume the last thing he's concerned about right now is being banned from running a company. The only thing that he's concerned about right now is, are they going to let me keep some money to live and live my lifestyle and pay these lawyers? And will this eventually become criminal? In my experience, most defendants struggle to do what their lawyers tell them to do, which is to, if you have done this, accept responsibility as quickly as you can. You can fight it, and we'll be here to help you fight it. It will be expensive. But if the SEC has brought this, I know from experience, they have spoken with dozens of investors, people who invested and who are angry, and they want retribution. So they already have so much evidence collected by the time they bring a case. And that evidence at times could be overwhelming. The lawyers could be conveying this to him and saying to him, 1, you shouldn't go online and talk about this. And 2, there could be value in reaching an agreement. And with the SEC, you don't admit or deny responsibility, though if he signs it, it's pretty clear something happened. And of course, a major factor is how much money he could be prepared to turn over. Because it's one thing to sign an agreement, it's another thing to say, here's 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. And certainly that could influence what the DOJ does. If anything, there have been some very large FTC and SEC investigations over the years that have not become criminal. It's really in large part by how the person responds right now. It wouldn't even surprise me that there are 3 people involved in this case that, by virtue of what one of the 3 does now, by way of cooperating, assets, giving them the roadmap into how this happened, it could compel the SEC to not recommend charges to the Department of Justice. It really all stems from what they do now. A lot of people who are already in pain, the waiting, the wondering, the stress, especially if they know they've done it, choose to cut their losses really early with the SEC, and then knowing that it may go to the DOJ, just say, I want to get it behind me. I think there's a good lesson for anyone involved in marketing, including me. You can't overstate what you can deliver. Keep investor money separate and documented, and understand, if you film live videos as I do, you do Instagram and TikTok, all of these things that I do, understand things that you say can be listened to by government regulators, by the SEC, by the Department of Justice, by people who will listen to every word that you say. I think it's very unfortunate that we're here. I think a lot of his content, I presume, even though I never bought it was useful, there was a wittiness, a likability to him, clearly a skill set. And I'm be curious to see what his next moves will be, along with his 2 co-defendants. That's what I wanted to convey here in this quick, random live YouTube video about Tai Lopez's $112 million charge by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Let's let the case play out. Let's try to take less pleasure in the pain of other people. I found it interesting that I'm sure people who attended his events and bought his stuff, who might not have had the success that he had, are now taking such pleasure in his pain. Let's be objective. Let the process play out. I don't think we get ahead or become more successful by wishing harm or pain or stress or agony on other people. Those are my thoughts, at least. Bye-bye.